The transport ship shook as it entered the docking bay of Station 7. Park held tight to the metal handle above her seat and watched through the small window. The station was massive. It stretched across the darkness of space like a silver city floating among the stars. She had seen pictures before. Every soldier in the United Earth Defense Corps knew about this place. The Galactic Coalition Military Academy was where the best warriors from 100 different worlds came to train together. And now, for the first time in history, humans were invited to join. Was one of 12 humans selected for this program. She did not feel special. She felt nervous, but she would never show it. The transport landed with a heavy thump. The doors opened, and bright white light flooded inside. Grabbed her bag and her weapon case and stepped out onto the metal floor of the docking bay. The air smelled different here. Clean, too clean, like nothing had ever lived or died in this place. Did not like it. Parked over here. She turned and saw Sergeant waving at her from across the bay. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a kind face. They had served together for 3 years on the Mars border. She trusted him with her life. Walked over and stood beside him. Together, they watched as the other human soldiers gathered their things and formed a group. "How was your flight?" asked. Long said, "Boring." He smiled. "Same, but hey, we made it. First humans at the academy, that is something." Nodded but said nothing. She was looking at the other side of the docking bay, where the alien recruits were gathering. There were so many different species. She had studied them in her briefing files, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall and thin, with bodies like insects. They had 4 arms and large black eyes that seemed to see everything at once. Their skin was hard like armor, colored in shades of brown and green. They were the opposite. They were huge and heavy, with thick bodies covered in gray scales. They looked like the dinosaurs from Earth's ancient past. Each one carried weapons that seemed too big for any human to lift. And then there were they were beautiful in a strange way. Their skin was pale blue, and they moved like water flowing through air. They had webbed hands and large, dark eyes. Some of them wore breathing masks and remembered that they came from a world covered in oceans. "They are all staring at us," said quietly. He was right. Many of the alien recruits had stopped what they were doing to watch the humans. Some looked curious. Others looked annoyed. A few looked like they wanted to laugh. Understood. To these species, humans were newcomers. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. These other civilizations had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. To them, humans were children, primitives, barbarians who had only recently crawled out of their caves. "Let them stare," said. "We are here to train, not to make friends." A loud horn sounded across the docking bay. A voice spoke in a language did not know, but her translator implant quickly converted it to words she could understand. "All recruits will now proceed to Equipment Hall 7 for gear inspection. Follow the lights on the floor." Blue lights appeared on the metal floor, creating a path toward a large door. The recruits began to move. Walked with her fellow humans through the station's long hallways. Everything was silver and white. Everything was perfect and clean. She felt like she was walking through a hospital instead of a military base. Equipment Hall 7 was a massive room filled with tables and scanning machines. Officers from different species stood at stations, checking weapons and armor. The recruits formed lines and waited their turn. When reached the front of her line, an officer looked down at her with his large black eyes. He was holding a tablet that glowed with strange symbols. "Name and species," he said. His voice clicked and buzzed, but the translator made it sound almost normal. "Corporal Park, human, Earth." The officer made a note on his tablet, "Weapon." Lifted her weapon case and placed it on the table. She opened it carefully, revealing what was inside. The rifle was old, very old. The wood of its stock was dark with age and the metal was scratched and worn from years of use, but it was clean It was perfect. Every part was exactly where it should be. It was a modified M2010 enhanced sniper rifle, a ballistic weapon. It used chemical powder to fire metal bullets, technology that most species had abandoned thousands of years ago. The officer stared at it. His mandibles clicked together in what assumed was confusion. "What is this?" he asked. "My weapon," said calmly. This is a projectile weapon, a chemical ballistic system." The officer looked at her like she had brought a rock tied to a stick. "Is this a joke?" "No." Other recruits were starting to notice. A group of nearby stopped their conversation to look. One of them, a young male with bright green coloring on his arms, pushed through the crowd to get a better view. "Is that what I think it is?" he asked loudly. The human brought a bullet thrower. Laughter spread through the group. It was a strange sound, clicking and hissing and rumbling, as different species laughed in different ways. But the meaning was the same everywhere in the galaxy. They were laughing at her. The green-armed stepped closer. His name tag said. He leaned down to look at its rifle like it was something dead and rotting. "I have seen these in museums," said. "They are toys, children's toys, thousands of years old." He looked at with what might have been pity. "Did your people not have anything better to give you?" Met his gaze without blinking. "This weapon was my great-grandfather's, and his father's before him. It has served my family for 4 generations." Made a clicking sound that her translator identified as amusement. "How touching. A family relic. But this is a military academy human, not a history class." A huge shadow fell over them both. Looked up to see a recruit standing nearby. He was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall with arms as thick as tree trunks. His name tag read. "Perhaps the humans still hunt with sticks and stones," rumbled. His voice was so deep it made his chest vibrate. "Perhaps they think war is still fought with fire and metal. How primitive, how sad." More laughter. Felt's hand on her shoulder. He leaned close and whispered, "Do not react. Do not give them what they want. Not on our first day." She took a deep breath. He was right, she knew he was right, but her hands were shaking and it was not from fear. The officer finished his scan of the rifle and pushed it back toward her. "Weapon registered, primitive ballistic long-range variant, effective range." He paused and checked his screen twice. Then he looked at with something new in his eyes, something that might have been surprise. But he said nothing more. He simply waved her through, closed her weapon case and walked away from the table. The laughter followed her. His clicking voice called out, "Good luck in training, human. Try not to hurt yourself with that antique." She did not turn around. She did not respond. She simply kept walking, holding her family's rifle close to her chest. They did not understand. None of them did, but they would learn. Park was a sniper, and on Earth, snipers did not fight at 200 meters like the. They did not fight at 150 meters like the. They fought at distances these aliens could not even imagine. Soon they would see, and they would stop laughing. 3 days passed at the academy. 3 days of classes about galactic law, military history, and coalition protocols. 3 days of eating strange food and sleeping in a small metal room. 3 days of whispers and stares, and laughter whenever walked past. She had learned to ignore most of it. She kept her head down, studied hard, and spent her free time in the barracks cleaning her rifle. Checked on her every night, worried that the mockery was getting to her, but never complained. She just smiled and told him not to worry. On the 4th morning, everything changed. An announcement echoed through the station at exactly 600 hours. All recruits were to report to Training Zone Alpha for their first practical examination, marksmanship assessment. Felt her heart beat faster when she heard those words. Finally, this was what she had been waiting for. She dressed quickly in her standard gray training uniform and grabbed her weapon case. When she stepped out of her room, she found waiting in the hallway. Ready? He asked. Always, she said. They walked together through the station's long corridors, following the crowd of recruits heading toward the training zone. Noticed that everyone was carrying their weapons now. They had thin, elegant rifles that glowed with soft blue light. They carried massive cannons strapped to their backs. They held slender devices that looked more like musical instruments than weapons, and had her old rifle in its worn leather case. Training Zone Alpha was not inside the station. It was outside, on the surface of a massive asteroid that the station orbited. The recruits gathered in a pressurized dome and put on their helmets before walking out through the airlock. The asteroid's surface stretched out before them like a gray desert. There were no plants, no water, no life. Just rock and dust under a black sky filled with stars. In the distance, could see target drones floating at different heights and distances. The recruits formed neat rows and waited, stood with the other humans at the back of the formation. Was beside her, checking his own weapon, a standard plasma carbine issued by Earth's military. I do not like this place, he whispered. No cover, no atmosphere if something goes wrong. Nothing will go wrong, said, but she understood his concern. Out here, one mistake could kill you. A door opened at the front of the dome, and a figure walked out onto the asteroid's surface. The recruits immediately fell silent. It was but older than any had seen before. His blue skin had faded to pale gray, and his movements were slow and careful. He wore a simple black uniform with no medals or decorations, but everyone treated him with respect that went beyond rank. That is head instructor, whispered. I read about him. He fought in 3 interstellar wars. He is considered one of the greatest military minds in the coalition. Studied the old carefully. His eyes were dark and deep like pools of black water. When he looked across the rows of recruits, felt like he was seeing everything, every fear, every doubt, every secret. Recruits, said. His voice was soft but carried perfectly through their helmet communicators. Today we begin your training in truth. Not theory, not simulation, truth. He gestured toward the target drones in the distance. Marksmanship is the foundation of all combat. If you cannot hit your enemy, nothing else matters. Today, you will show me what you can do. A murmur went through the crowd. Recruits shifted nervously and checked their weapons. We will proceed by species, continued. Each group will demonstrate their standard engagement range. You will have 3 shots to hit a moving target. Success is measured by accuracy, speed, and distance. He pointed to the group of recruits. You first. They stepped forward with their nerve disruption rifles, watched carefully as they took positions on the firing line. Their weapons hummed with energy, and small lights blinked along the barrels. A target drone activated 200 meters away. It was small and fast, zigzagging through the air like an angry insect. The first fired. A beam of crackling blue light shot from his rifle and struck the drone perfectly. It fell from the sky, sparking and dead. Excellent, said. 200 meters, clean hit. The other took their turns. Most of them hit their targets. A few missed and noted their failures without emotion. When the demonstration was complete, the old instructor nodded. The engagement range averages 200 meters, acceptable for ambush and defensive positions. Next. The lumbered forward. Their plasma cannons were enormous, requiring both hands to lift. Noticed that several of them had to brace their bodies against the recoil compensators built into their armor. Their targets were set at 150 meters. The drones were larger but also faster than the targets. When the first fired, the sound was incredible. Even through her helmet, felt the vibration in her chest. A ball of superheated plasma screamed across the asteroid's surface and vaporized the target drone instantly. 150 meters, announced. Heavy damage, effective against armored targets and fortifications. They continued their demonstration. They were not precise, but they were powerful. What they could not hit directly, they destroyed with splash damage. By the time they finished, several of the target drones had been reduced to melted scrap. The green-armed who had mocked on her first day leaned toward his friends and whispered something. They all clicked their mandibles in laughter, did not need to hear the words to know what they were saying. The went next. Their sonic pulse weapons were almost silent, creating only a soft hum before releasing waves of compressed sound. Their targets were set at 300 meters, the farthest of any species so far. Was impressed. They were accurate and fast. Their weapons left no visible beam or projectile, making them perfect for stealth operations. When they finished, gave them a rare nod of approval. 300 meters, precision work, well done. Now it was the human's turn. Felt every eye on the asteroid turn toward her group. The 12 human soldiers walked forward and took their positions on the firing line. Most of them carried standard plasma carbines or laser rifles, weapons they had been issued before leaving Earth. But carried her old rifle. His voice came through the communication channel, loud enough for everyone to hear. Look, everyone, the human with the museum piece is going to show us how primitives fight. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Even some of the instructors seemed amused. Raised one webbed hand for silence. The laughter stopped immediately. Corporal Park, the old said. His voice was calm, but something in his tone made stand. I notice your weapon is different from the others. Yes, sir, replied. It is a ballistic rifle, chemical propellant metal projectile. More whispers, more clicking sounds of amusement. But did not laugh. He did not smile. He simply looked at his rifle with an expression she could not read. I have seen weapons like this before, he said quietly. Many years ago, in the early days of humanity's contact with the galaxy. He turned to face the other recruits. His ancient eyes were hard now, like stones at the bottom of a dark river. Recruits, he said, be quiet and watch very carefully. The tone of his voice silenced everyone, even stopped his clicking laughter. Something had changed. Something important was about to happen. Looked at, Corporal Park, would you like to demonstrate your weapon's effective range? Felt her heart pounding in her chest. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Yes, sir, she said, I would. Nodded slowly. A strange smile crossed his gray face. Good, he said. Then let us give you a proper target. He raised his hand and activated his command console. In the distance, far beyond the asteroid range, something began to glow. The other recruits looked confused. They could not see any new target. The drones were all behind them now. Then saw it, a tiny light far away, not on the asteroid. On the moon. Pointed toward the distant light. Your target, Corporal Park, when you are ready. Let out a sharp clicking laugh. Surely you are joking, instructor, that is impossible. No personal weapon has that range. Said nothing. He simply watched with those deep, dark eyes. And smiled. The number appeared on everyone's helmet display at the same moment. Heard gasps from the alien recruits around her. Some of them stepped backward like they had been pushed. The distance to the target drone was 3,400 meters. 3,400 meters, not on the asteroid, on a small moon hanging in the black sky like a pale coin. This is absurd, said. His voice had lost its mocking tone. Now he sounded confused and angry. No soldier carries a weapon with that range. This is artillery distance, fleet weapon distance, not personal arms. The other recruits murmured in agreement. They shuffled their massive feet nervously. Even the calm looked uncertain. But Instructor said nothing. He simply watched with patient, ancient eyes. Ignored all of them. She had stopped hearing the whispers and complaints the moment she saw the target. Her mind was already working, already calculating, already becoming the weapon it needed to be. She opened her weapon case and lifted the rifle with careful hands. The wood of the stock was smooth and warm against her palms. 200 years old, and it still fit perfectly in her grip. It knew her. She knew it. Said softly through a private channel, "Are you sure about this?" She did not answer with words. She simply dropped to the ground and settled into prone position, her body flat against the cold rock of the asteroid. The rifle rested on its bipod, its long barrel pointing toward the distant moon. Understood. He crouched beside her and pulled up his wrist computer. Numbers began scrolling across his screen. "I am reading the atmospheric data now," he said quietly. "The target is in a thin atmosphere. Gravity is 0.3 Earth standard. Wind speed near the surface is 12 meters per second, direction northeast." Listened but did not respond. Her eye was pressed against the scope now, and the world had narrowed to a single circle of light. She could see the target drone through the magnification. It was small, no bigger than a human head, and it was moving in a random pattern designed to make it impossible to hit. Impossible for most weapons, impossible for most shooters. But was not most shooters. "Effect will push the round approximately 2.4 meters to the right at this distance," continued. "Temperature differential between here and there will affect powder burn. I am adjusting calculations now." Made tiny movements with her hands, adjusting the scope, compensating for factors that the alien recruits could not even imagine. On Earth, snipers had been doing this for centuries. Long before humanity reached the stars, her ancestors had learned to kill from distances that seemed like magic. The target drone continued its random movements. Left, right, up, down. It was designed to be unhittable. Its artificial intelligence predicted patterns and avoided them. It was the latest technology the Coalition had developed. But technology could not predict what it did not understand. "Everyone is watching," whispered. Knew she could feel the weight of their stares on her back. All the species that had laughed at her weapon. They were waiting for her to fail. They were waiting to mock her again. She let the feeling pass through her like wind through leaves. It touched her and then it was gone. Nothing mattered now except the rifle, the target, and the space between them. Her breathing slowed. Her heartbeat steadied. The universe shrank until there was nothing left but a single point of light on a distant moon. She began counting between heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. The target moved left. 1, 2, 3. The target moved right. 1, 2. She fired. The crack of the rifle was like thunder. It echoed across the asteroid's surface, a sound that none of the alien recruits had ever heard before. Chemical propellant igniting, metal accelerating through a steel barrel, old technology, ancient technology, deadly technology. The round left the barrel at nearly 1,000 meters per second. It crossed the vacuum of space in perfect silence, climbing toward the distant moon. 7 seconds of flight time, 7 seconds of waiting. No one moved, no one breathed. The holographic display in his helmet flickered once. Then the words appeared, bright green against the black of space. Target destroyed, center mass. For a long moment, there was complete silence. The alien recruits stared at their displays, reading the words again and again. Some of them shook their heads like they were trying to wake from a dream. Then Instructor spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the training zone like a funeral bell. 3,400 meters, single shot, center mass. He paused. Does anyone still wish to laugh at the human's weapon? No one laughed. His mandibles were frozen in an expression that translator could not identify. His large black eyes were fixed on her rifle like it was a live explosive. The massive took 3 steps backward. His heavy plasma cannon suddenly looked small and useless in his huge hands. The recruits were whispering to each other in their flowing language, but even without translation, could hear the fear in their voices. She rose from prone position slowly, carefully. Her movements were smooth and controlled, the movements of a predator that did not need to hurry. She picked up her spent shell casing from the ground and slipped it into her pocket. A habit from Earth. Never leave evidence behind. Was staring at her with wide eyes. Even though he knew what she could do, even though he had seen her shoot before, he still looked shocked. "That was incredible," he whispered. Did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply closed her weapon case and stood at attention, waiting for further instructions. Walked toward her slowly. His old body moved like water, flowing over the rough ground without effort. When he reached, he stopped and looked at her rifle case for a long moment. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward the case. Hesitated. The rifle was precious to her. It was more than a weapon. It was her family's history, her grandfather's legacy, her connection to everything humans had survived to become. But there was something in his eyes, something that looked like respect, something that looked like understanding. She opened the case and held it out to him. The old lifted the rifle with webbed hands that were surprisingly gentle. He turned it over, examining the worn wood, the scratched metal, the hand-carved initials on the stock. YP, and before that, HP, and before that, JP. 4 generations of Parks, 4 generations of snipers. "I remember the first time I saw one of these," said softly. "I was young then. My unit encountered human soldiers during a border dispute near the Outer Rim. We thought they were primitives. We thought our superior technology would crush them in hours." He paused, running one finger along the rifle's barrel. "We were wrong, so very wrong." He looked up at the other recruits, who were still standing in stunned silence. "My entire command squad was killed in the first engagement. All of them. We never saw the enemy. We never heard the shots. We simply started dying one by one from a distance we could not comprehend." He handed the rifle back with careful reverence. "That was the day I learned that age does not equal weakness, that simplicity does not equal inferiority, and that humans," he looked directly into his eyes, "humans are the most dangerous thing I have ever encountered in 300 years of warfare." The training zone was silent. No more whispers, no more laughter, just the sound of breathing and the distant hum of the station's life support systems. Turned to face the crowd of recruits. His voice was stronger now, filling the space like water filling a container. "Class dismissed for today. Tomorrow, we will begin integrated combat training. I suggest you all think carefully about what you have witnessed here." He began walking back toward the dome entrance. Then he stopped and spoke one more time without turning around. "And recruits, when you are in the field with a human sniper on your team, remember this day. Remember that while you are fighting at 200 meters, 300 meters, they are watching over you from distances you cannot imagine, protecting you from enemies you will never see." He disappeared through the airlock. One by one, the recruits began walking back toward the dome. They moved quietly like mourners at a funeral. Some of them glanced at as they passed. Their eyes held different emotions now. Not mockery, not amusement. Fear, respect, and something else. Wonder. Stood alone on the asteroid surface, holding her rifle case against her chest. The distant moon still hung in the sky, unmarked by what had just happened. The target drone was already being replaced by station maintenance robots. She thought about her great-grandfather, who had carried this rifle through the Pacific Reclamation War. She thought about his father and his father before him. All the soldiers who had looked through this scope. All the enemies who had died without ever knowing what killed them. "We are watching," she whispered to the stars. "We have always been watching." Then she turned and walked back toward the dome, where was waiting with a proud smile on his face. The mess hall was usually loud. Different species gathered at different tables, eating different foods, speaking in dozens of languages that filled the air with clicks and hums and musical tones. But tonight, the mess hall was quiet. Noticed the change the moment she walked in. Conversation stopped when she passed. Eyes followed her across the room. Some recruits moved their trays to make space for her, even though there were plenty of empty seats elsewhere. Sat down across from her with his tray of bland protein supplements. The station food was designed to be safe for all species, which meant it tasted like nothing at all. "You are famous now," he said with a small smile. "Everyone is talking about what you did today." Poked at her food without appetite. "I just hit a target, nothing special." "Nothing special," laughed. "You hit a target on a moon from an asteroid with a 200-year-old rifle. The whole station is losing their minds." She looked around the mess hall. He was right. The alien recruits were stealing glances at her from every direction. Some of them looked scared, others looked curious. A few looked angry, like she had cheated somehow. At a nearby table sat with a group of soldiers. His green arms were folded tight against his chest, and his black eyes were fixed on his food. He had not looked at once since they returned from the training zone. "I think you hurt his pride," said, following her gaze. "Good," replied. "He was annoying." The doors to the mess hall opened. An instructor walked in. Immediately, every recruit in the room rose to their feet in respect. The old waved a webbed hand dismissively. "Sit, eat. This is not a formal occasion." But instead of walking to the instructor's table, approached the area where and the other humans were sitting. He stood at the end of their table and looked down at them with those ancient dark eyes. "May I join you?" Was surprised. Instructors never sat with recruits. It was not done. But she nodded and made space on the bench beside her. Sat down slowly, his old joints creaking. He had no food tray. He simply folded his hands on the table and looked at the humans with an expression that was hard to read. "I owe you all an apology," he said. The humans exchanged confused looks, an instructor apologizing to recruits. "When the Coalition Command informed me that humans would be joining the Academy, I was skeptical. Your species is young. Your technology is primitive by galactic standards. I thought you would struggle to keep up with the other recruits." He looked at its rifle case, which she had placed on the bench beside her. She never let it out of her sight. "I was wrong, and I should have known better. I have seen what humans can do. I have lost friends to human weapons, but I allowed myself to forget." The mess hall had gone completely silent. Every recruit was listening now, even the ones who pretended not to care. Instructor spoke up from his table. His voice was bitter. "That shot today, it was impressive, but surely it was a trick, some modification to the weapon. No standard military rifle can reach those distances." Turned to face the young. "You think she cheated?" "I think there must be an explanation. Our weapons cannot shoot that far. They cannot shoot that far. Even they, with our advanced sonic technology, cannot shoot that far. How can a primitive ballistic weapon outperform all of them?" Was silent for a moment. Then he stood up and walked to the center of the mess hall, where everyone could see him clearly. "You want an explanation? Very well, I will give you one." He raised his voice so that every corner of the room could hear. "You mock humans because they use old technology. You laugh at their chemical propellants and metal projectiles. You think your plasma weapons and nerve disruptors and sonic pulse rifles are superior because they are newer, cleaner, more sophisticated." He pointed at, "Your weapons are designed for precision strikes, minimum collateral damage, quick, clean kills that preserve infrastructure and minimize suffering." He pointed at who sat at a table across the room. "Your weapons are designed for overwhelming force, breaking fortifications, destroying vehicles, maximum damage in a small area." He looked around at all the species in the room. "All of your weapons are designed with one thing in common. They are designed for civilized warfare, for conflict between advanced societies who share common values about combat." Walked back towards table. His voice dropped lower, but somehow it seemed even louder in the silence. "Human weapons are not designed for civilized warfare. They are designed for one purpose only: to kill as efficiently as possible at any range under any conditions, without mercy and without limitation. He gestured at its rifle case. This weapon is not a tool of precision. It is not a tool of breaking things. It is a tool of death, pure, simple, absolute death. It was created to kill other humans across distances so vast that they called them continents, land masses. Imagine that. A weapon designed to kill from one piece of land to another, across oceans and mountains and deserts. Felt a strange mix of pride and shame as spoke. Pride because he understood. Shame because she knew exactly why these weapons existed. Why? Asked. His voice was quieter now, less certain. Why would any species design such terrible weapons to use against themselves? Turned to look at. Would you like to answer, Corporal Park? Stood up slowly. She looked around the mess hall at all the alien faces watching her. For the first time, she did not see mockery in their eyes. She saw fear. She saw confusion. She saw a desperate need to understand. Because we had no choice, she said. She took a deep breath. This was the part of human history that Earth's diplomats usually kept quiet, the part that made other species uncomfortable. On Earth, we were not a unified species. We were divided into thousands of groups, different nations, different cultures, different religions, and we fought each other, constantly. For thousands of years, we killed each other over land, over resources, over ideas. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Our weapons evolved faster than our wisdom. Every time we invented a new way to kill, someone else invented a way to kill from farther away, faster, more efficiently. Swords became guns. Guns became artillery. Artillery became missiles. And through it all, the snipers remained. She touched her rifle case gently. Snipers were the ultimate evolution of personal warfare. One person, one weapon, changing the course of battles from distances that should have been impossible. We learned to shoot through walls, through armor, through anything that stood between us and our targets. Rumbled from his table. But you have peace now. Humanity is united. Why do you still carry such weapons? Looked at him steadily. Because we remember what we were, what we are capable of becoming again if we forget. This rifle is not just a weapon, it is a reminder, a warning, to ourselves and to anyone who would threaten us. Nodded slowly. And now you understand why I asked you to watch carefully today. Human weapons are not primitive, they are primal. They come from a species that spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. And when they finally reached the stars, he looked at with something like respect in his old eyes. They brought everything they learned with them. The mess hall remained silent. Recruits stared at their food without eating. Some of them looked sick. Others looked thoughtful. A few of the younger ones looked excited, like they had just learned something incredible and terrible at the same time. Stood up from his table and walked toward. She tensed, expecting another insult. But instead, he stopped in front of her and performed a strange gesture with his forearms. Her translator identified it as a sign of respect. I apologize for my words earlier, he said. His voice was small and uncertain. I did not understand. Nodded. Most people do not. It is easy to think that advanced technology makes you superior, but technology is just a tool. What matters is the person using it. Looked at the rifle case. May I ask, how many generations has your family been doing this? 4, said. My great-grandfather was a sniper in Earth's last great war. His father served before him, and his father before that. We have protected our people for over 200 years. And how many targets have your family eliminated in that time? Was silent for a moment. The number was recorded in her family's records, written in a small book that was passed down with the rifle. She had memorized it as a child. Thousands, she said quietly, all confirmed, all from distances that should have been impossible. Made a clicking sound that her translator could not interpret. Then he walked back to his table in silence, placed a hand on shoulder. His webbed fingers were cool and dry. "You did well today, Corporal Park, not just with the shot, but with your words. Perhaps now they will understand why humanity was invited to join this academy." He turned to address the entire mess hall one more time. "The coalition is strong, but it has enemies. Enemies that do not share our values. Enemies that are willing to fight without mercy or limitation. To defeat such enemies, we need warriors who understand that kind of warfare." He looked at the 12 humans scattered around the room. "We need humans." Then he walked out of the mess hall, leaving 100 alien recruits to stare at the small group of Earth soldiers with new eyes. Leaned close to, as the conversation slowly started again around them. "Well," he said with a nervous laugh, "I think our reputation just changed." Picked up her rifle case and held it close. "Yes," she agreed, "for better or worse." The station's night cycle had begun. The lights in the corridors dimmed to a soft blue, and most of the recruits had returned to their quarters. The halls were empty and quiet. Sat alone in the human barracks, her rifle spread out on the small table in front of her. She had been cleaning it for over an hour, but she was not really thinking about the weapon. Her mind was somewhere else, somewhere far away and long ago. A soft knock came at the door. "Come in," she said without looking up. Entered and closed the door behind him. He was wearing casual clothes instead of his uniform, and he carried 2 cups of something hot. The steam rose in thin spirals. "I found some tea in the storage room," he said, placing 1 cup next to her. "It is not great, but it is better than nothing." Nodded her thanks and took a small sip. It was bitter and strange, nothing like the tea she remembered from home, but it was warm and that was enough. Sat down on the bunk across from her and watched as she continued cleaning her rifle. His eyes followed her hands as they moved across the metal and wood with practiced ease. "You know," he said after a while, "I have served with you for 3 years. I have seen you shoot targets that I could not even see with binoculars, but I have never heard you talk about your family, about where this rifle came from." Paused in her work. She looked at the rifle in her hands like it was a living thing. In some ways it was. It carried the memory of everyone who had held it before her. "You never asked," she said. "I am asking now." She was quiet for a long moment. The sounds of the station surrounded them. The hum of life support, the distant vibration of engines, the heartbeat of a machine built to hold life in the emptiness of space. "My great-grandfather was named Park," she began. Her voice was soft, like she was telling a bedtime story. "He was born in a small village near the southern coast of Korea. Back then, Korea was one country, not divided like it was in the older times." She picked up a small cloth and began polishing the rifle's scope. "He joined the military when he was 19. It was the time of the Pacific Reclamation War. You know about it from the history books. The water had risen, the coastal cities were drowning, and everyone was fighting over the land that was left." Nodded. He had studied that period in military school. It was one of humanity's darkest times, when climate change had pushed civilization to the edge of collapse. "Became a sniper because he was patient," continued. "That is what he always told my father. The other soldiers wanted action. They wanted to charge into battle and prove themselves, but understood that sometimes the best way to win is to wait, to watch, to take one perfect shot instead of 100 useless ones." She held the rifle up to the light, checking for any remaining dust or debris. His first confirmed kill was at 1,200 meters, a supply officer in an enemy convoy. One shot through the driver's window of a moving vehicle. After that, his commanders noticed him. They gave him better equipment, better training, better targets. "And this rifle?" asked. "Not yet. Used many different weapons during the war. The rifle we have now came later, near the end of the conflict. It was a gift from his commanding officer after completed an impossible mission. His hands stopped moving, her eyes grew distant. There was an enemy general who was organizing the final resistance. He was protected by 3 layers of security deep inside a fortified compound. No one could get close. Bombs would cause too much civilian damage. Infiltration was impossible. She took a deep breath. They sent my great-grandfather alone. He crawled for 2 days through ruins and rubble, carrying this rifle on his back. He set up position on a destroyed building 3 kilometers from the compound, and he waited. 3 kilometers, whispered. Even by modern standards, that was an extreme distance for a sniper. On the 3rd day, the general stepped outside for exactly 4 seconds to speak with his aide. Fired once. The general was dead before the sound of the shot reached the compound. She resumed her cleaning, her movements automatic and precise. After that, the war ended quickly. Without their general, the enemy forces collapsed. Millions of lives were saved. And when the peace treaty was signed, his commander gave him this rifle as thanks. It had been modified with the best technology of that time. Improved barrel, advanced scope, enhanced accuracy. A weapon that could kill from distances that seemed like magic. And he passed it to his son. Yes, my grandfather, Park. He served in the border conflicts of 2087. Same rifle, new wars. He added his own modifications. Better materials, improved sights, but the core remained the same. She pointed to the small initials carved into the stock, HP. Then it passed to my father, Park. He was a sniper during the Outer Colony Rebellion. The first time humans fought in space. He had to learn how to shoot in zero gravity, through vacuum, across distances measured in kilometers instead of meters. Another set of initials, TP. And now me, said Park. 4 generations, 200 years. This rifle has seen more of human history than any museum artifact. Looked at the weapon with new eyes. It was not just a tool. It was a record of humanity's journey from a broken planet to the stars. Your family has always been watching, he said softly, protecting. Nodded. That is what snipers do. We see what others cannot see. We reach what others cannot reach. We are the eyes and the hands that strike from the shadows. She assembled the rifle with quick, confident movements. The pieces clicked together perfectly, and soon the weapon was whole again. The aliens today asked why we still carry these weapons when humanity is at peace, she said. But they do not understand. There is no peace. Not really. There is only the time between wars. Frowned. That is a dark way to look at things. It is an honest way. Humans spent 10,000 years killing each other. We are good at it. Maybe the best in the galaxy. That does not go away because we signed a few treaties and built a few space stations. She looked at him directly. Her eyes were hard but not cold. There was something like sadness hidden behind them. The other species evolved on peaceful worlds. They developed technology slowly, carefully, with cooperation and shared goals. When they fought, it was rare and limited. Their weapons reflect that, precise, clean, civilized. She held up her rifle. We evolved on Earth, a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, and worst of all, each other. We did not have the luxury of peaceful development. We had to fight for every inch of ground, every resource, every chance to survive. And our weapons reflect that, finished. Yes, our weapons are not designed to win battles. They are designed to end them. To kill so completely, so efficiently, that the enemy loses the will to fight. That is what the aliens do not understand. That is what was trying to explain. Was silent for a long moment, thinking about her words. Do you ever feel, he hesitated, do you ever feel guilty about what we are? Considered the question carefully. Sometimes, she admitted. When I look at thee or the, with their beautiful worlds and peaceful histories, I feel like we are monsters, like we are the darkness that should have stayed on Earth. She placed the rifle in its case with gentle hands. But then I remember what my father told me before I left for the academy. He said that every species has their purpose. They are diplomats, they are scientists, they are builders. She closed the case and looked at with eyes that burned with quiet intensity. And humans, we are warriors. We are the wall that stands between civilization and the things that would destroy it. We are the rifle that kills from continents away. We are the fear in the darkness that makes enemies think twice before attacking. She stood up and walked to the small window in the barracks wall. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant against the black of space. Somewhere out there are species we have not met yet, species that did not evolve peacefully, species that are just as violent as us, maybe more. When they come, and they will come, the coalition will need warriors who understand real war. She turned back to with a small, sad smile. That is why we are here. That is why they invited us. Not because they like us, not because they respect us, because they fear what is coming and they know that only humans can protect them from it. Stood up and walked to stand beside her at the window. Then I suppose we better not let them down, he said. Looked at her rifle case one more time. We never have, and we never will. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance, unaware that somewhere in the darkness humanity was waiting, watching, ready to do what it had always done best. Survive no matter the cost.